Welcome to Rise to Liberty podcast. Our guest today is founder and CEO of Little Liberty, a Black and LGBT owned business located in Boston, Massachusetts. Little Liberty promotes economic and financial literacy in primarily communities of color. Additionally, he is a libertarian, helping to spread the message of liberty. He is a talented spoken word poet and generally a great person. Ladies and gentlemen, my friend, Jeremy Thompson. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I appreciate for that powerful introduction, as always. But yeah, I'm Jeremy, founder of Little Liberty, founding member. It's been a wild ride. Can't wait to talk more about it.
Hell yeah. So when did you guys form actually?
So the business was actually formed as an entity earlier this year, but it has been operating in a trial period and sort of in the idea phase ever since 2019, late 2019 to be precise, so October. And Jesus, that was back when it was really just a baby seed. Well, like just idea. There was like nothing to it. And later in 2020, that's when I started getting really serious about, okay, how do we trial exactly certain methods that might work, specifically like when it comes down to people's resumes, and obviously like credit repair and giving people credit advice. That, to say the least, has definitely been expansive. Like at least the knowledge has been expansive, and doing those trials and figuring out what works to help develop these financial literacy courses. I remember like I just learned so much about how to meet people where they're at inside of like financial spaces, specifically when it comes down to teaching and helping people like see their own worth as well.
Oh yeah. So what were the conditions like in your community that really led to you wanting to form this business?
Yeah. So this there's a lot there, but I do want to bring up a few stats just because those speak more than I could. The median net worth as of 2015 for your average Black family in Boston was $8, and this is 2015. In that same year, it was reported that Dominicans had a median net worth of $0. It was also reported that white counterparts, white families in Boston were reported to have a median net worth of $247,500. So we're seeing it's a bit of both. It's a bit of both an income problem, and it's a bit of a knowledge problem, because in my community, what contributes to that is folks get into debt before they're even of age. A lot of people, because of economic conditions, have their names put on light bills, say when they're 14 years old, 15, even 8 years old sometimes, because their parents can't pay. So they put these things in their name, and because they couldn't already pay off their debt, their child starts accumulating debt under these accounts under their names. And then it kind of creates this recurring cycle of debt, in the same way that like you can build generational wealth, you can also build generational debt. And a lot of folks don't know how to get rid of that debt, don't even know that they have the debt. And it's really what contributes overall to a lot of the stats we're seeing, as well as like their inability there's also, just to be quite honest, an inability to pay certain debt. And I'm pretty sure, I wish there were stats for the COVID lockdown and how that's affected the median net worth stat, but I know for a fact, like with more businesses closing down, is definitely impacted the Black community more than anything. I say this all the time: on the same streets that we have Black Lives Matter painted on, our Black and brown businesses are shut down on the sidewalks.
Yeah. Well, and that speaks volumes right there, in my opinion. Like, you got Black Lives Matter on the street, and then a Black-owned business closes its doors. It's like, really? Come on, keep the business open. Maybe don't paint the sidewalk. Like, if it's a choice between the two, that is. But man, that's wild. Excuse me. Have you faced any government or corporate roadblocks trying to slow you down, or like prevent you from doing any of this?
So it's been a lot of research and just figuring out exactly like what am I, like if there's anything I do that requires additional regulation, exactly how to navigate that and how can I avoid that until like we're big enough to actually meet those. So of course, like because I'm not Series 65 licensed through FINRA, I cannot give specific, for instance, investment advice. Like I can't talk because I stay away from language that says, hey, go buy, hey, you should be doing, hey, this, that, and the third, as long as it's educational in general. I'm not really upheld to any regulations. And this is also a good thing because it reduces like my liability cost. So I only have to pay for instance, general business insurance versus professional. Whereas if I were to have that FINRA license, I would need to have that professional license, well, that professional insurance just to protect that license. And that also includes continuing education. I also can't do tax stuff because obviously I'm not a CPA. I'm a certified public accountant for those that don't know. And that takes a lot, but I'm definitely working on getting into those spaces as well. As far as government, like specifically like what has impacted me, I would say honestly just the LLC filing fee. That's really about it.
Surprising. I mean, I'm not really sure exactly how the government is over there in Boston, but over here in my neck of the woods in Utah, man, if you try to do anything for the community, they either want their fingers in it or they don't want you to do it. So they really put up a big fight. Like when all of us over here were trying to fight for medical marijuana, and it was just a nightmare the whole time. So yeah, that's incredible though. Incredible that you're doing this.
My tax liability. Oh, I'm sorry to cut you off.
Oh, no worries. I was just saying it's incredible that you were doing this in the first place. You know, a lot of people won't do anything. So that's why I wanted to highlight you and have you on today. So
I appreciate it.
What other services do you currently offer, or do you plan to offer in the future?
Yeah, so currently right now we are offering it's like a two-pronged business, so two service lines, two main service lines. We have institutional services, and then our personal services. The personal services includes a suite of career consulting, basically, career coaching, and helping people figure out exactly like who do they need to network within their career to build up if they're in the corporate line. Exactly, do we tailor like their experiences to help them land for instance, a trade job? Or it could look like, okay, you are someone who wants to go into the sciences, but you don't have your curriculum vitae set up, or your CV. And so how can we help you with that? So that's really just about helping people like get the income that they need. And then we also have our financial planning, which is pretty much self-explanatory, helping people budget, making sure that folks are allocating correctly and tracking their spending how they need to, making sure that their debt to income ratios are staying consistent, as well as like figuring out their goals so that we can better get them there. And then we have credit counsel, which is essentially us teaching you about and directly going in and helping fix up your credit report. To be honest, the government has been the largest help when it comes down to credit advocacy, only because of at least federally, because of the FCRA. Like it helps outline basically your powers, rights, and so we kind of use that. As far as the institutional services, again, the financial literacy courses, we partner with like larger organizations who really can spare the money and basically just add that service on top of whatever they do. And essentially like it's like a focus group, about 10 to 15 people. They come in and they learn basically about just a wide range of financial topics. And then they kind of go back into their community, teach people about it, and we track that social impact. And so we'll hit up, like we'll call everybody that they've reached out to, that they've reported that they've reached out to, just to confirm. And then we'll ask them like a series of questions just to make sure that they actually understand the concepts that the person told them about.
Yeah.
And then lastly, we have our speaking services, which is really just we charge, for instance, if we're speaking at an event. And if it's like a per person registration kind of event, we charge per person. If not, then we're going to charge basically according to crowd size, which does very much vary depending on what people are expecting. We're also considering getting into the DEI space for larger financial institutions such as like banks and investment banks, to see like what they can do in the community to help develop programming and better like position themselves away from the whole predatory banking what is that niche, to put it lightly.
Well, it's always good to niche down though, then you always end up being able to find the people that you were exactly looking for, at least through my experience. Every time I've been too broad on any project I've ever done, it's still worked, but it's never worked exactly as I had wanted it to. I ran a charity program for a firefighter and his wife. They had a premature born baby, and he did a lot for our community. So we tried to raise him and his wife some money. And outside of a couple of other issues, it was just a little too broad of a goal at the time. And we were still able to raise some money, get some good things done, but we weren't able to reach our goal at the time. And that was just one of the things we reflected back on. So niching down, niche down as far as you can, and then build back up if you got to go back from there. But so if anyone needs your services or would like to get involved, like to donate, like to spread the word around, how's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so we have a PayPal. Let me make sure I have this. I want to make sure I get it right. So I'm not making sure I'm messing up anything. We do have a PayPal. We're getting started on like a Kickstarter as well, and that is something that we are thinking about. But honestly, if folks want to really just get involved, that we always just you can always contact us at contact@littleliberty.org, and you can really just figure out how to spread the message from there. Help sharing our posts is awesome. Like we're all over Facebook, we're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, the trifecta, and Twitter. But we're not as active on Twitter. We're hoping to change that. But yeah, you can message us on any platform. We're available 24/7. Always encourage people just to come and ask questions, see what we know. Yeah, honestly, the getting involved can be as simple as just going to our website at littleliberty.org.
Perfect. You guys are doing some great work. Like I said, that's why I wanted to highlight you guys. It's just absolutely incredible. So let's change gears here and let's talk about you a little bit. So what was your biggest red pill moment, or was it a collection of little moments?
Can you define red pill for me?
Red pill. Okay. Well, let's see. A better way to phrase this. What made you decide to go libertarian?
Oh, you mean gold pill? Okay.
Gold pill. Red and black pill.
I had to make sure. But so gold pill for me was, I come from the left. That's just plain and simple. So I started off when I was like 10 years old as like a Black Lives Matter organizer through this little community organization called Hawthorne. And from there, that was around kind of when the whole Trayvon Martin situation happened. And then I think, I just got into my activism through there. Then I became like an LGBT advocate back in like 2014. And then that lasted all the way up until like 2019. I'm still an LGBT advocate. I just don't specifically do work in the space out here anymore. A lot happened with that. But in 2016, I found Ben Shapiro, who I vehemently disagree with now, which was weird. Like I thought back then he was making good points, and then I realized sort of the fallacies and issues with those points. But essentially, he was my introduction to the concept of a libertarian. And so from him, I moved on to Jordan JBP, Jordan B. Peterson, and also found a student org called Students for Liberty back in like 2018. And they had this conference out at Harvard that I believe Rachel Rollins went to, a dude from the ACLU, and Nick Gillespie was at. All awesome people. And I just loved their message during that conference. And it just like really, so essentially the message was all about like supporting sex workers, ending the drug war. And then obviously like, because this woman was running for DA at the time, she was specifically in a position of power and she was telling us to hold her accountable to that. And I just like, that's very inspiring. Because she also did win for district attorney. But moving onward, I got involved sort of in the LP back in last year. So 2020, in the middle of the pandemic. Like I always thought the LP was like, not for me, not too serious. But then I got involved and I'm like, actually there's an infrastructure here that we can actually build and go off of. So for me, being yellow pilled is this idea of limited government that I feel like serves everyone, right? Because when it comes down to police killing people, libertarians deserve to be at the forefront of that conversation about how do you limit this power, no matter who's in it, especially when we talk about the presidency, with presidents constantly bring us into state of emergencies. And honestly, that the message of limiting power really stuck with me. That is probably like one of the more important tenets of libertarianism that I stick with. And yeah, I guess that was my gold pill. It was a series of gold pills.
Ben Shapiro, that's interesting. That's funny though. I mean, considering where you ended up, I mean, I don't know. I like him, I guess. I don't really follow him or listen to him. Kind of annoying, but he's done well for himself. So, I guess you can do that when you build a career off of arguing with college students. But,
right.
Yeah, big issue. I don't know with, I don't know. I just lost my train of thought. Never mind. So no, that's awesome though. I actually haven't been involved with the LP until this year as well. I wasn't, just like you, I wasn't really interested. I didn't think it was really for me. It wasn't some structure I wanted to be involved with. I just wanted to be, the lone libertarian that was going to save the world through shit posting. But, everything started changing and I was like, all right, this is the time to join. So just got involved. And so, yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I can't say I've ever been like a shit poster. I've definitely like haven't gone down that path. I don't know what the future holds though.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just fun. I kind of, started internet life as a bit of a troll. Well, not really. I wouldn't really troll just for shits and gigs. I would troll with a purpose. And it actually worked out in my favor quite a few times. So the shit posting, I was just graduated, but let's see. So in your opinion, why should any younger generation care about liberty at all? It seems like an obvious question, but every time I think, I don't know, I just can't come up with a great answer. So
I think the greatest answer, at least for me, is constantly we see like a system that grows itself and manipulates its populace, and it gets worse each year. So the younger generation should care about liberty because there's nothing, the flame of liberty will die out with the rate at what we're going. It's really it's not even really just a matter of time, it is dying. We live in a country where cops can shoot people and get off. We live in a country where like average citizens are not upheld to the same standards that the people that we elect are. We live in a country consistently oppresses not just minorities, but everyone. And we get too wrapped up in these silly arguments to actually focus on the main issues, right? So younger generations period care about liberty, because if you don't, what we're going to start seeing, honestly, is a structure that I don't think is going to benefit really anyone. I think they're going to liberty in our lifetimes. Honestly, this isn't even for the younger generations. It's when this for us. Liberty in our lifetimes is important in achieving, because if you care about your kids' future, if you want to make sure that your kids like become successful people and productive members of society, whatever may have you, they need to have a structure that is backing them, and that's a societal structure. So I don't know what we're gonna see in the upcoming years, but I definitely know like personal choice, freedom, especially in healthcare, is very, very, very important. And for those of these young ones fighting right now, please don't lose the fight. Don't give up. There's so much to be done. So many places to get involved. Right, from fighting against pit bull bands in your community all the way to shutting down a complete section of a city because cops just killed yet another person. Get involved where you can, and really just keep up that fight, keep up the strength, and define for yourself what liberty looks like to you. Because I think we get too wrapped up in like, what does liberty look like? Who's a libertarian? Who's not? As long as you're fighting for what liberty looks like to you, right, on those important causes, you're doing something right. You have a right to your First Amendment. And you better fucking use it. Stand up for something or fall for everything. Yeah.
Well said. Well said. That's yeah. I've never been a fan of being told what to do, and anyone that knew me in school definitely knows that. But I think an aversion to excuse me, an aversion to imposed authority was like one of my biggest. Well, I would say I started Red Pill, was never really a Republican, but then obviously black and gold all the way. But one of my biggest wake up moments was just realizing I didn't have to do something that somebody told me. And I can't exactly quite pinpoint when I was younger, what made me realize the fact that you have two decisions, or two directions to go down, and that's liberty or slavery. And there's very degrees along the way, but that's how both directions end up going. You're either free or you're a slave. And granted, they're both extremes on each side, but that's it. So that's really all there is. And if you're not fighting for liberty, then you're being pushed towards slavery. So that's awesome. It's absolutely incredible. You gave such a great answer. So let's see. Here's something a little unrelated. I totally had to see what your answer was to this, because I thought it was going to be great. So what's the most creative excuse to get out of doing something you didn't want to do?
Oh man. All right, so this one's hard because I never really give excuses for not doing stuff. Like, granted, I keep my plate a little too full at times. So usually what I'll do is like I'm just very direct. But some of the more wild things I've ever heard was, oh man, I can't come see you because I think I broke my rib in a car accident. Yeah, the whole car flipped over. Nothing on the news. Nothing about the highway being shut down. Blah, blah, blah. It's all nonsense. And so he's like, man, can we link up again? I want my resume done. This time third. Help a boy out. And then he's like, yeah, I'm in the hospital right now. 2 days later, what you doing? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, like, I don't know how you came up with all this, like this elaborate story. Like, you could have literally just said you didn't want to come through,
Yeah.
right? Or like that, you know, something else. Like,
Yeah,
something
just be honest. I don't need a story. You know, this isn't story time.
Right. Like, I don't like, listen, it's your money. I'm not
Yeah.
really, I don't really care about like why you didn't come through.
Yeah.
But it was very, very weird. And then there was also one guy who tried to kind of scam me in a way. He told me that like my dad had told him that I would do his resume for like $2 an hour or something like that. And I was like, I don't know where you heard that, but here's a link to my website. And he was like, damn, dude, $30 an hour. He's like, who got that? I'm like, bro, that's like 1 hour max. I know you have a phone. And then he just starts going like, oh, I'll hit you later. I gotta figure something out. Blase, blase, blah. You know, still hasn't never hit me up. I'm not even mad about it. It's just it was very, very weird. Like, like I can confirm what you just said with somebody else, because if you're saying somebody else said something and they're close to me, like I have easy access to this person. Like, I don't know. Those are some of the more like creative ones I've definitely heard. But I guess like the second one really wasn't an excuse not to do something. It was just like a weird made up story.
Yeah. Man, people are so weird when it comes to that. And I think a lot of it comes from they're worried what other people think about them, you know? And so they have to make up these crazy excuses because they don't want to look like they're at fault. You know, they don't want to look like a piece of shit. And it's like, no, it's okay. You were late. You forgot to wake up a few minutes earlier. So just admit it. But all right.
I think it has to do with like perceived power and validation, right? In the same way that some people like get scared if like their state senator comes by, you know, or like feel like there's power in the room. It's kind of like that same thing where people like perceive there to be power, and so they feel like they have to act or switch up, you know, which I can understand to a degree if someone has power over your life, but it's not making sense. Like, I also don't, and even in getting to the discussion about like work culture, like I don't want anybody who works with me or within this company to ever feel like they need an excuse, right? Like, I'd rather you just flat out say, yo, I'm depressed. I can't come through to work today. Like, because then I can maneuver around that. When we're playing the excuse game, I have to figure out, okay, are you coming back to the office? When are you coming back to the office? That's not. I can just be like, okay, let me know if you need any help. But to me, honesty is like fostering that environment where people are comfortable being honest with you, though, especially as an employer, is something that I am striving to do. I think I'm doing it well, but currently it's really just two folks in this. And he's really not an employee. He's another member of the LLC. So
that's definitely something. It took me a long time to learn. Really, just be honest with your boss. You know, I've probably could have saved myself getting let go of a couple of jobs, you know, over the years if I would have just been flat out honest. I mean, I felt like it was a little bit too personal that I shouldn't tell my boss something like that, which I might still feel that way, but it doesn't help you to not. So as long as you just tell them like, hey, this is what's going on, you know, what can we do? So yeah, I definitely could have saved my ass a couple of times when I was younger, you know. So
but it definitely does depend on the boss too. Well, because
it does.
Actually, I hate the word boss. I really prefer leader, because boss are really just slave masters to me, to be honest. And it's like, you know, some people are just like that when they're in that kind of mindset, in that position of power, it kind of corrupts like their humanity in a way. They don't want you to see them as human anymore. They don't want to act human around you. These are a lot of people, especially when we talk about like more like high level corporate jobs, or even in franchises where they know they could you know, just replace you. You know, it really does depend on kind of boss you, what kind of industry you're in, what kind of boss you have. But in general, it is good to be, you know, honest, because at the end of the day, like, these are still people, you know. And at least my philosophy is, as an employer, is if you're on my team, I want to see you win in anything you do. So if you're on my team, I want you, if you're here for a reason, if you're here for a resume builder, all right, well, I'll give you all the tasks you need. I'll give you extra stuff that's outside of your job description if you're really serious about wanting to build up your career. You know, and I will assist anyone in that however possible, especially giving people connections. Like, hell yeah, you know. I do that for friends anyway. Like I do that for people who are adjacent in business, you know.
Yeah.
You kind of got to take care of your people.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's just what you do. Take care of the people that take care of you. I mean, networking is one of my favorite things to do. Like I get so excited to be able to do that. That's where I shine, which I'm so excited for Reno. It's not even funny. That's going to be
I'm excited for Reno for a plethora of reasons.
Yes. That's networking is just one. Well, cool. I think we're going to wrap this up, but I definitely want to get you on again, get an update on things and everything, touch on some different subjects. So we'll have to have you back on in a little bit. So anything you want to plug, anything you want to let everyone know that you're doing?
Yeah, just hit up littleliberty.org and shoot us a message if you want to find out anything more, if you want to see exactly where we're at, where we're positioned. On top of that, you can also find more of my work just all over. I'm actually trying to break more into political consulting. So if you have friends who you know are running races, if you know there are people around you who may or may not need some help with their campaigns, I'm always available for hire. I currently am helping out multiple campaigns throughout the U.S. Not gonna name names as an NDA is to be expected, but it's looking pretty good. It's looking like I'm about to break into this industry like soon.
Hell yeah. Good for you. You're gonna do great. So definitely know that. Well, it was a pleasure talking to you, and make sure and send me a couple of things and I'll make sure and throw it in the show description and everything. So
definitely. And I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for coming.